Well, good afternoon. I have high noon, so I think we ought to get started to keep everybody on schedule. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us today for our new knowledge session. My name is Sandy Ratliff. I'm with Virginia Community Capital, and we're happy to partner in this program with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, and the town of Abington. If you're not familiar with Virginia Community Capital, we are a community development financial institution focused on lending, investing, and community innovations. I tell everybody every week it's hard to believe that we've been doing this since 2014 to support the Washington County Business Challenge. And I just looked this morning, we have archived over 170 new knowledge sessions since 2014. So that's impressive to keep this program going. Before I turn it over to my co-host, I wanted to mention that today's session is being recorded for training and educational purposes. And wanted to let everybody know that to keep this session moving forward and flowing freely, we do have everyone muted and their video off. However, I know that our speaker today wants to have your questions. That's why we call this a hands-on session. So if you have questions, please post those in the Q&A section, and he will address those during the session. As I mentioned, this session is being recorded, and it will be available for viewing at the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page and our YouTube channel, New Knowledge, following. I'm going to turn it over to my co-host and partner in crime, Kathy Lowe. Kathy is the Executive Director of the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, and she knows our speaker very well, and I'm going to turn it over to Kathy.
So, thank you, Sandy, and thank you all for attending. Danny is probably one of the biggest QuickBooks experts I know, and I can attest to that because he transferred our books from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online and walked us through some mistakes we made early on. Danny works at Spiegler Blevins and has been there for how many years, Danny?
10 or 11. I quit counting a long time ago.
Yeah. And he's a fellow Emory and Henry graduate, so that just makes him an all-around good guy. I think if you have some questions from last week, Danny, would you prefer they ask them before you begin or after the session's over?
It doesn't matter. If you want to hit me with them now, I'll try to go through them.
Okay. Yeah, it probably help if you all have questions from last week and they're brief, ask Danny. If they're not brief, put them in an email and we'll get them to him. So without further ado, Danny Rubel.
Well, hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well today. Similar to last week, I'm going to share a sample file here of Craig's Design and Landscaping Services. And this is the file that we'll be using to train with today. Today's session will primarily be talking about invoicing and accounts receivable, as well as receiving payments and making bank deposits. So as has been stated earlier, if you would just post any questions you have in the Q&A, and I will do my best to get those answered. Similar to what we were discussing last week in using QuickBooks Online or any accounting software, getting your setup right from the beginning is really key to making your accounting software and QuickBooks Online function. So before I go through the process of showing you how to create invoices, I'm going to go through some of the setup processes. To get to the setup, you'll click on the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll go to Accounts and Settings under your company. And under this section, we're going to today primarily take a look at the sales setup. And under the sales setup is where you have several setup options. You can, to a certain degree, set up how you want your invoice to look. And there is a template here that you can go through, and you can do everything from putting as much or as little information as you want on the invoice. You can add a logo, and I'm not going to go through all of the setup here, but you have design options, you have content, and you have emails. And under the email function, this is where you can decide whether or not to email the invoice as a PDF or just as a standard email. You can, in this lower left-hand corner, you can even put in a standard message to your customer. Pretty much once you've designed how you want your invoices to look, you'll just save it, and then you can make that invoice as the default. Ooh, where are we going? And so you can see right here that it has saved an invoice, even though we really didn't do very much customizing. Also under the sales, anytime you see in a setup, anytime you see a pencil to the right side of the screen, that means that those are items that you can edit. On your invoice, you can determine what type of terms you want on your invoices. Are they due on receipt, or do you have net terms where you extend credit to customers? And this is where you would make that option. You have the option to print your invoices later, or to send later if you're sending those invoices via email as opposed to postage. You can turn shipping on or off, and within the you can also determine what kind of fields you want. You can customize your own transaction numbers, and you just click the button to turn that to green to turn that feature on. If you're choosing to use custom transaction numbers, or if you just want QBO to auto-generate transaction numbers for you, they generally increment in numbers of 1. You can just leave that feature off. You can decide whether to give discounts or not. Again, toggling these buttons, if they're green, that means they're on, and if they're gray, at least I think that's gray, that means it's off. Other options that you can, we'll just save those options. Other options, you can, if you're using if you're using QuickBooks Online to track inventory, you can track your inventory with your products. You can also turn on certain rules. I don't have many clients that use this feature, but I do know that it is available. Late fees, you can determine whether you want to automatically charge late fees to customers. And again, this is an option that you can turn on or off. There are some of these other items. The one that I like the best is probably the online delivery. I understand that This may not be ideal for the postal service, but I do think that a lot of customers prefer to receive invoices online, and it's just a little more environmentally friendly as opposed to printing paper out. I do highly recommend that when you do select the option to email customers, that you email them with a PDF attachment. And that gives your customers the ability to open and download that attachment or to save that attachment on their own PC. And I think that tends to be a little more friendlier than having to print the email. Also on statements, you have the ability to, at the bottom of the statement, you can either turn on or off whether you want the customer to know how long their account has been outstanding. Again, these are all features under the gear icon, which is in the upper right-hand corner. And when you go to that gear icon, if you'll go to accounts and settings, and all of those settings that we've just reviewed are under the sales options. The next item I wanted to cover under setup is, again, I like to use the gear icon. It is to go under list. And under our list, we're going to take a look at products and services. So with this sample client, these are the products and services that the client has set up. You can see that they have, under the type, they have both services set up as well as inventory. And within that, they have set prices for some. So we're going to take a look at their design template here. So I'm simply going to click Edit to the right-hand side. And under this setup, you give the name of the product or service that you're using. In this case, we're taking a look at the design. And this is what the description is, more or less what shows up on the invoice. And so you can see right here under the sales rate, they charge $75 for a custom design. You can determine what rate you want to charge for your services and or products. And to the right-hand side right here is the income account. And they have this already coded to go to the design income. And this will come in handy when we start generating invoices, because with this setup, you're not going to have to think about what account you want to put an invoice in. When you have your services and products set up, all you have to do is select that product or service when you're doing the invoice, and QuickBooks Online will take care of putting everything where it needs to go on the accounting side on the back end. Generally speaking, at least in Virginia, this may not be the case everywhere, but in Virginia, services are generally not taxable. So you can see that right now they're not charging any sales tax. But if when you're setting up your products or services, you can tell it whether to charge sales tax or not. Once you're done setting up or editing your products and services, you can either hit save and close, or one of the features in QuickBooks Online is anytime you see in green a drop-down arrow next to it, you can click the drop-down arrow and that will give you additional options. Usually it's either to save and close or save and new. So if we wanted to create a new product or services, we would do save and new. And then at the top, this is where we would set up our new product. SKUs for any type of inventory that you're keeping track of. Category, Category is generally used if you're using classes. I'm going to skip that for now. And because what we're doing is free, I'll leave the price in there as 0. And I'll just say that we want to put this in fees billed. I'm not going to charge any sales tax. And this time I'll do save and close. And this will take us back to our list of products and services. If you are tracking inventory, we'll take a look at pumps here. It's a similar setup, except for this time you may be tracking your inventory by SKUs. And under the inventory asset account, you'll decide whether you want to track inventory by charging an inventory account, or do you want to charge cost of goods directly. And this is where you would make that determination. Again, it allows you to set up a default sales price, and with sales tax, you'll have the ability to make that product either taxable or not taxable. Since we're dealing with products, it also gives us the ability to track inventory by cost. And right here at the lower part of the screen, it gives us the ability to put what our standard cost is and whether you purchase that product from a vendor or not. After you have your products and services set up, we'll head over to, on the right-hand side, in this particular file, we have customers and leads. So we'll jump into customers. And what we'll go through next is setting up a new customer. And so we will click in the green, the new customer tab. We'll say that we'll say Kathy Lowe is our new customer today. You can put the company name in if you like. We'll say Small Biz Wiz is Kathy's name. And then we can decide how we want that customer to display. Do we want it to display by their company name or by their name? And if you're deciding to display by name, you can have it displayed either by last name first or first name last. Right here is where the next item that I think is really key is to putting their email address in. This will come in handy when we're ready to email the invoice to Kathy. The rest of the information right here is really more or less up to you as to whether you want to use QuickBooks Online to store all of your customer data. It is quick and easy to put in their phone number, mobile number, or fax. Below, we'll scroll down some more. We have the ability to set up their address. And do you want to set, you can have both a billing address and a mailing address or shipping address if you're shipping product to them. If you have two different addresses, you would simply uncheck the box under shipping address, and you would put the next box or the next address in that box. Other notes and attachments that you may want to put in here, if you've perhaps you've already agreed to a certain price list with a customer, you can certainly add that attachment in here for reference when you're going to that customer. Under the payment sections, under the primary, this is just information purposes primarily. That's really up to you whether you want to use that drop down or not. Terms for the customer. The terms that we discussed earlier in the setup process, that is a universal setup for your company file. You may have separate terms depending on who the customer is, and any setup within the customer will override what you may have set up in your default. So you may have some customers that you want paid immediately, so you would choose to do on receipt, or you have others that you may extend to 30 days. And so this is where you would put that. Under additional info, this is a feature that is probably underutilized in my opinion. Under the customer type, we don't have any customer type set up, but right here under taxes, this is where you would put whether they're taxable or not. And it looks like this particular company operates primarily in California and Arizona. And so by checking that box, it brings up the option of what sales tax rate do you want to charge. So depending on where that customer is or where you're doing business, it is where you would charge whether this customer is taxable or not. Pardon me for 1 second. I'm looking for additional information. But we will save Kathy for now. And this brings us to Small Biz Wiz. You can see that we don't have any transactions right now. Under the Small Biz Wiz, you'll see that we have a transaction list, projects, customer details, and the customer details is certainly where you'll keep most of your default information. To create invoices, we have several different ways to create those invoices. Since we're in Small Biz Wiz right now, we'll create an invoice from this screen. And again, in the green, we have new transaction. And when we click that, we have the options of what type of transaction are we doing. And so since we're focusing on invoices right now, we'll go ahead and select the invoice transaction. And most of the information above on this top part of the gray area is the default information from when you set the customer up. And you can see that right now there's not a billing address in there. You do have the ability to edit the information right here. You can, again, even though we have Small Biz Wiz set up as net 30, we can change the terms depending on, on an invoice by invoice basis. So it automatically creates the invoice date as today's date, and the due date is depends on what kind of terms you set. So if you depending on the terms, it automatically changes the due date. For Small Biz Wiz, I'm going to tab over to our product and service, and we're going. I'll just pick design for right now. Quantity can be sort of loosely defined. You can define quantity as number of hours or number of products. In this case, I want to say our quantity is hours, and so I'm going to change our quantity to 2 hours. The default rate was $75 an hour, and so that comes up to $150. Because we're in Virginia, I'm going to say that these services are not taxable, and so I'm going to uncheck the tax. But if it was taxable, you can either select what jurisdiction you're collecting sales tax in, or if you have that set up as default, it'll automatically calculate for you. So right now, I'm just going to uncheck the box for tax. Under attachments, you have the ability to click that link, and it will basically give you the ability to search your computer to find attachments. So it could be another invoice, it could be a picture if you've done a project and you want to include a picture. Pretty much any kind of attachment that is under 20 megabytes, you can attach to the invoice. Options on here at the bottom, you can print or preview the invoice. You can make this invoice recurring, or you can customize it further. I don't have Kathy's email address saved up here in the customer email, but if I did, the next step would be in the lower right-hand corner would be to save and send. Or you can click the drop down to the right of the save and send, and you can save the invoice and create a new invoice, or save it and close, or save and share a link. For right now, I'm going to choose the save and close. And what that will do is when we look at our transaction list under Small Biz Wiz, we can see that our invoice, we created an invoice today, and that there's $150 open on this invoice. The other way that you can create invoices is underneath the Intuit QuickBooks on the left-hand side is our new button. By clicking the new button right underneath customers, we can click invoice, and this will bring up the same screen that we were working with before. I guess just to go through the entire process, let's say that Kathy was kind enough to pay us. So the next step is to receive our payment. We can, again, like anything else in QuickBooks, there's a variety of ways to accomplish the same function. From this screen, I'm going to click Receive Payment. And so I know that the customer is Small Biz Wiz. The payment method is really just information for you. This doesn't really do anything as far as the accounting. One item of accounting that I would like to discuss with you here is on the Deposit To feature right here. We have the option to receive this payment into undeposited funds, or we can do the drop down and receive it directly to our bank account. This is probably one of the most confusing topics that we have with clients, and I will what I'll do is show you the accounting issues that we run into commonly here. So if I want to say I'm depositing this to checking, and then I'm going to save and close, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our dashboard, take a look at our business overview, and then I'm going to look at our checking account. And within the checking account, we can see that different deposits and receipts that we've received. Trying to find where. I'm sorry.
Hey, Danny.
Yep.
can you see this, this question? She said, this all looks great for retail sales. Where and when do we have the opportunity to increase knowledge for nonprofit organizations?
Yep. I see that, and I'll try to get to that here in just a few minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Under the banking right now, these are the transactions that we can receive. The transaction that I've just done has already been received, and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to just find the transaction real quick, accounting wise, to show you how that transaction posted. So right here, we can see that that transaction posted as $150 received, and that is directly into our checking account. And using undeposited funds, if we go back to customers and I want to receive payment, we'll go with Amy's Sanctuary, but this time I'm going to use the undeposited funds account, and we'll save. We'll do save and close. What happens when we go to make a deposit is when I click the new and we go to make a bank deposit, we have three different items that are in what we call undeposited funds right now. And undeposited funds is used when you're depositing multiple items. So say you've got 3 checks that you want to deposit today. What happens is when you receive that deposit and you tell it to go to a checking account, if we had done that on these 3 items, it would have posted all 3 of these to our general ledger as 3 separate transactions. And when you get your bank statement, it creates a situation where you'll have to add those together to equal the amount that was deposited on the bank statement. If I wanted to deposit, say, two of these items today, I would check these items right here that are in our undeposited funds. We see that the amount is $1,914.52. And when I do save and close, what is going to happen when we look at our general ledger is that item will show up in checking and our check register as a single deposit, as opposed to multiple deposits. And that makes reconciling your bank account a lot easier, because now this 1914.52 will show up. Your general ledger will match your bank, would actually hit your bank statement, and that will make reconciling your bank statement a lot easier. So far, all of these functions are also applicable to nonprofit organizations. We have several nonprofits that use QuickBooks Online, and even though this is a for-profit sample company, you can also create invoices and set up products and services within your QuickBooks Online. Not sure if that's what you're looking for as far as the nonprofit side, but creating invoices is going to be similar. Receiving payments is going to be very similar. Using the undeposited funds is going to be very similar.
Yeah, I'll interject here. You know, we're a nonprofit, and everything that we are seeing on these screens are the same. It's just that
Probably worded a little differently.
Yeah, the invoices are called pledges. And so there's a little bit of a different wording, but the function itself is exactly alike. And there's a function on when you're setting all this up as to, you just check whether it's taxable or not. And so with nonprofits, it's not taxable. So the invoices don't add tax. So even the sales function is the same as far as what you're selling to the customer, or what, I guess donations, Danny, might be different. What would be?
I think and I think instead of calling them customers, I think depending on which type of nonprofit selection you pick on QBO, they're probably called members. Instead of sales, they may be like you said, pledges, or I can't remember right off the top of my head, but all of these functions are applicable to nonprofits. It's that the nonprofit side uses different terminology. The next item I wanted to cover was sales receipts. And by clicking the new button, we can, and checking the sales receipt, this is a function that you would use if you're receiving payment immediately and are not using the accounts receivable function. Again, I'm just going to start typing in small biz whiz customer, and again, you'll pick your product or service, and under rate, we'll say it was $150 again, and we'll make that item taxable. We'll say that we'll charge California sales tax, and you can see that this is an example of collecting sales tax. And what you would do here is save and close. And what the sales receipt function does is it allows you to receive money, funds immediately, and it posts it to it will post it to your books without going through the accounts receivable and receive payment function. One of the options that I'm going to try to not forget where it is under company is under the, I think it's under advanced. Yes. Under automation, this function, under the automation, the second item to automatically apply credits. This function, if turned on, will automatically apply credit memos to an outstanding invoice. And with this function on, I will show you an example of that. Again, I'm going to go to customers. We'll say, we'll check out Bill's shop here. And let's say that for some reason we're giving him a credit memo, and we'll say $50. So I'm going to go under new transaction. I'm going to create a credit memo. I'm going to bypass doing, well, probably need to pick a product or service so that the right account gets charged. Again, I'm going to change this to $50. And when we save and close, you're going to see that credit memo has automatically been applied to the invoice. And so there is $35 now open. Again, you're able to set up that feature by going to the gear icon, accounts and settings, under the advanced on the left-hand side, it's going to be under the automation. I found that some clients really like that feature because then they don't have to think about applying credit memos to invoices. Some clients find it frustrating because when this is toggled on, it automatically applies the credit to the oldest invoice and not necessarily to a specific invoice. If you want to apply credit memos yourself, you simply toggle that function off and click save. So that is a function that we have some clients really like, some really hate it. It's a mixed bag, but that is where you find that function. Other options to receive payments in QuickBooks Online. I'm just going to tell you some of the features that QuickBooks Online offers. I'm not pushing any of them, but two options that QuickBooks Online offers is for you to allow customers to pay you by ACH, or QuickBooks Online will also accept credit and debit cards. What I can tell you is that the ACH function is a little cheaper. It does charge a service fee to accept the payment, but it's not as expensive as you accepting credit cards through QuickBooks Online. Now, with either feature, by accepting credit cards or ACH, if the customer clicks on your link from your invoice to pay by either one of those methods, once they hit the submit button, QuickBooks Online does all the posting for you. It will post the payment, it will credit the accounts receivable, and you'll see the payment both on your bank statement and in your ledger. I'm looking at a question that says to follow up about nonprofits. Can you change the titles? For example, sales. Yep. To answer that question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second. And that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at one of my other nonprofits real quick off screen, and that feature is normally available when you initially set up your QuickBooks Online file, where it asks you what type of entity are you. Please bear with me for just a second, and I will tell you what some of those terms are on the nonprofit side. So on the nonprofit side, it'll generally say sales. You'll still have invoices. Instead of customers, you'll have members. On the reporting, instead of members' capital or retained earnings, you would have fund balance. Just looking at the setup real quick before I go back to my screen share. Because I don't want to give you incorrect information. So I will try to share my screen again.
I also think that it gives you an option for restricted funds also, Danny. I'm not positive, but I think it does. For instance, if you have, if somebody's contributed funds for only one, function.
Right. I'm sorry, bear with me for just a second, and we'll get back to our sample file. Were there any questions from last week that anybody had that that I can answer while I'm getting back to our sample file?
Hey, Danny, while you're looking that up, I have a question. When you were talking about you could put your contacts in QuickBooks, is there a way too that you can back up your contacts as well as all your invoices either to an external hard drive just for extra checks and balances if something should happen?
Yes, that there is a way to download a backup that can be restored to a QuickBooks desktop, and it's not the easiest process to go through, but if you were to Google backup QBO to QBD, it gives you the step-by-step process. As far as on the setup under accounts and settings, the company type right here, which is right below the company name, if we were to, if you change this to a nonprofit organization, going to see if this changes any of the terms or not for us. That by itself didn't change the terms, but I do know that when you initially set up your QuickBooks file, it will generally set those terms up for you. But as Kathy said, pretty much everything that I've covered will be applicable to nonprofits also, as far as setting up products and services. That is just about everything that I had on my list that I wanted to cover. I know it was kind of may have been a little too quick on some parts and maybe not enough time on some others. So if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to try to entertain those. Otherwise, I'll just thank everybody for being here, and we'll cover vendors and payments primarily on our next session.
Does anybody have any questions for Danny? And what will you cover on the next two sessions? I know you mentioned it last week or last session, but there may be some new ones on here, so I just wanted to let them know what's coming up.
Yeah, the next session we're going since today we spent quite a bit of time on invoices and customers today. The next session will focus on vendors and payments. So today we talked about generating revenue and how to collect money, and next time we'll talk about the dreaded how to spend money.
I can do that. If you need any help, I can spend money. Does anybody have any other questions for Danny or my partners in this program, Kathy, Nita? Do y'all have any questions for Danny?
I just want to say thank you. I think that if folks will just, be patient, Danny is actually walking through the function of QuickBooks in a manner that you have time to learn it between sessions. So, and if you have any questions in between time, you can contact us at Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, and between the two of us, Jean or I can generally come up with the answer. So our number is 492-2060 and 492-2062.
Sounds great. Well, Danny, I just want to just say again, thank you so much for sharing your precious time, but most importantly, your knowledge and experience and expertise in QuickBooks. And I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us this afternoon. I hope you are leaving with some good tips. Just want to remind you that I'll be uploading today's session to our Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page. You can't say all of that with peanut butter in your mouth. And also to our YouTube channel, New Knowledge. And you'll be able to get that. And if you missed Danny's first session, that is up there. So that'll be up there this afternoon. And there's a lot of other workshops, videos that's up in that that we have archived in our YouTube channel. As I mentioned earlier today, I've counted over 170 workshops, videos that we have up there. So if I guarantee if there's some kind of training that you need, we've touched on that since at some point since 2014. And of course, if there's something that you want, it's time for us to start planning our next series of new knowledge sessions. So if there is a topic that you think that is needed, the planning team would love to hear from you. So drop me an email and let us know. So thanks again, Danny. And I hope everybody has a blessed rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.